I'm not a fan of it.
You are or you aren't?
No, I'm not. Not at all.
Did not like looking at me on Skype.
No, I mean, I think it worked for us because we'd hung out a lot and we'd worked together before a bit on, when you were helping on Jerusha's film, and so we knew each other, so we had that basis to work on. But I did another film, Still Alice, last year, and though that was two directors, and they were in LA and in New York, and I just picked up and went to New York and sat in a room with them for a week, because I feel like when you're dealing with emotions, I think sometimes it's very difficult to get that, even over Skype. I feel like you have to be sat in a room to kind of feel. I think I learned so much. I write a piece of music and I think, this is going to be good, this is going to be great. And I play it in front of the director, and suddenly I feel myself shrinking into the seat, and I'm like, oh no, this was not a good idea after all. But you can't possibly have that feeling over Skype. And so I think being in the room together is important.
I actually really like it for myself because, well, I'd prefer to just stay in my apartment.
I understand.
With music, with every cue, if I had my druthers, I'd like to spend 24 hours with it and think about it and listen to it, forget about it, listen to it again, wake up, listen to it some more, and get some feedback from trusted, my editor and some producers. So I don't mind it. I actually like it because I like to live with a piece of music, and there's the initial response, which is very important, but then there's how I feel the next day, which I think is equally important.
Sometimes it's just better to let them have it, let them play with it, let them put it in the film, move it around. They come back with all these ideas, and because if they get uncomfortable and they're not sure they can be direct, and so in some ways it's been really wonderful to have them play with it, and then they get back to me and we can have a productive conversation rather than people being in a room kind of feeling pressured to say something. And
I also like to deliver stems even with demos a lot. Or reduced versions, so I'll give them a version with just ambience and piano or whatever. And I've had a lot, I know some people hate that, some composers hate that, but I always get floored when I watch a cut and I'm like, you made this? Like an editor will have layered two things and taken it and kind of Frankenstein something, and I think it can be exciting that way. It also makes communication easier because they're understanding everything's comprised of, and you can kind of start to have a conversation about the elements a little more organically that way.
I would just say that living in Portland, there's a reality for me. Not that people don't like to come visit, but especially with schedules what they are. And sadly, there are many, I can name a half a dozen directors I've never met, people from Europe. Films have done fine, and I just haven't made it to the festivals, and it's just the reality of it. I think it's more critical that your communication is established early on. And I think that, it's not that I wouldn't love to be in the room with every director and gauging their kind of visceral reaction to my cues, but I also really love living in Portland and biking around, and so.
I can't tell you how many times I've introduced a composer and a director here, because they've been talking in every other electronic way, but they'd never met face to face. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, I think the key, whatever access you have to each other, is I think you have to establish trust in both ways. So for a composer, there's just a certain point where you find the thing where you can tell the director's going like, oh, it's going to be okay. We're going to have a score. And then the moment they do that, you as a composer, you trust them. Oh, they get me. Oh, they get me. And so if sometimes that can be easier to do when you have some face-to-face interaction. But as long as you're striving for that and you have that critical moment, then it really doesn't matter. It's just logistics.